Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Code. Today's episode is really, really special. Number one, because it's my 40th episode. 40 episodes since my first episode with Jonathan Karras back in February 2023. Secondly, I'm crazy fanboying today because I have Ouriel Ohayon, who's the CEO and founder of ZenGo, which is one of my favorite apps within crypto. We're going to hear all about that and more today with Ouriel. Enjoy. Welcome to Beyond the Code, the podcast where industry experts and brilliant legal minds discuss the impact of new emerging technologies. I'm your host, Yitzy Hammer, a lawyer and tech enthusiast. Join us as we explore the legal, regulatory, and ethical issues surrounding AI, blockchain, and more. Get ready to go beyond the code and stay ahead of the game. Ouriel, good morning. Boker Tov. Welcome to Beyond the Code. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. I am major fanboying right now. I've both been following you for a million years. I love your content on X, and I absolutely love your product. Sometimes I have people come on and I haven't dabbled with their product yet, or I haven't read their book yet. I am one of the biggest fans of ZenGo. For those of you who don't know, Ouriel is the CEO and founder of ZenGo. It's a digital wallet, the last one you'll ever need. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. Huge fan. I think it's come up on some of the last 3 or 4 podcasts, just talking about, and I'm constantly amazed by how many people aren't yet familiar. So hopefully we'll use this podcast as a platform to kind of get the gospel out. And you're like a keyboard warrior fighting for Israel on X. And I don't know if you ever sleep. So please tell the audience a little bit about. I don't know all that much about Ouriel beyond 5 years ago. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, where you came from, and then we could jump into ZenGo and then your recent Israeli advocacy activities.
Sure. Well, first, thank you for this spectacular introduction. I've recorded a lot of podcasts, but none started this way. So thanks for that. And hopefully, by the end of this podcast, listeners will reconcile with what you said. And just for disclaimer, never paid you, never gave you anything. I think I never invited you even to a coffee ever. So
no, I didn't even get.
This is really natural, and I appreciate it.
Didn't even get a pair of free socks. So
we didn't get you a pair of free socks. All right, I think we can arrange that. We can arrange that. Who am I? What am I doing here? And why should people even care? So as you can hear by my accent, I'm originally French. I moved to Israel about 20 years ago. And I always cared about Israel. I never knew I wanted to come and live here, and even less stay here for even the rest of my life. But I always cared, and I was always interested into the story of my people. I was always very passionate about how Jews should defend themselves, and not just by way of using weapons, but also by using words and thoughts and ideas. And to me, it was a very natural move to actually come here. I did not expect to move to Israel. I moved here when I was I was actually pretty young when I moved here, but it was after my first years of experience as a professional. Prior to moving to Israel, I was working in tech. I'm not an engineer. I graduated from a master's in administration from a well-known business school in France. But I moved here after a few years of experience in technology, and I saw the birth of the internet, so that gives you a range of how old I am. At the time, it was only computers. There was no mobile. It was only the internet with AOL and a few websites like this and Yahoo, and the glory of those days. And I worked for large companies at first, very quickly understood that that was not for me. I wanted to work in companies that had human size that I could somehow relate to and in a way impact and somehow control. And so I decided to really focus on startup. And I split my career between building companies and investing in companies. So I created, a few companies. I sold some of them. Some of them failed also. I also worked in venture capital, both in Israel, but also in France, where I co-founded one of the largest VC fund for tech entrepreneurs. And now it's a very large fund. I'm no longer involved, but that was like 15 years ago. And after, a few iterations, I stumbled upon crypto. It became a moment of enlightenment and truth when I really realized the potential of it, and not for the reasons I usually mention, because of the price of Bitcoin and stuff like that, because I thought it was going to have a massive impact in society. And so I decided to dedicate all my time to it at some point. And later on, after a few months of research and deep investment, I decided to create a crypto wallet, which is the product that you mentioned earlier called ZenGo. And that was
when
7 years ago, that decision.
Oh, wow.
And then, we went through a path of like how to build it, what we want to build, and, all sorts of stuff we can talk about. But that's kind of the story of Ouriel. Just to summarize, born in France, worked in tech, never was an engineer, but always cared about Israel. Moved to Israel, had a few experiences here. We can talk about that if you want, but, I worked for ICQ here. I worked for a VC here, and then, very quickly moved back to entrepreneurship and stumbled into crypto about 7 years ago. And here I am. I'm not ready to leave yet. I'm still here.
Wait, so how long have you been here? If you worked in ICQ, that must have been a while ago. Was that like late 90s?
I moved to Israel about 20 years ago. ICQ was my first job in Israel. It was not my first job. I worked in a few companies before. It was my first job here. And at the time, ICQ was part of AOL. It was after the acquisition of AOL. And, basically, ICQ now is dead. They basically shut it off completely. But at the time when I arrived, it was like literally crashing in front of the rise of Skype and Microsoft Messenger. And my job was to kind of reverse the pace. And we did a pretty good job, actually, at making ICQ a prime property. And that was like at the time. But for me, it was like very difficult to work in a big machine like AOL. It was a huge corporation, very slow. And I hate things, like all entrepreneurs hate things that move slow. So I could not stay too long there. I spent, I think, a couple of years there. And then I moved into venture capital. And I also discovered it was the era of Web 2.0. Now we talk about Web 3 with crypto, but at the time it was called Web 2.0. Flickr, Delicious, MySpace, the beginning of Facebook, and the beginning of blogs. And I was very interested into blogs, in creating, like I said, using ideas and words to express what you care about. I was very interested in blogs, and I discovered a blog at the time was a little blog called TechCrunch. And TechCrunch at the time was not very well known, but I really cared about it, and I joined the founding team. And I was one of the first writers and shareholders of TechCrunch before it was acquired by AOL. Like ICQ, by the way, there's a pattern here.
Yeah, you seem to have a track record with working for companies that get acquired.
I was a contributor of TechCrunch for a few years.
Wow.
So that's that.
Okay, and then from TechCrunch, had this idea to build a wallet, and then how did the idea materialize?
There were a few steps before. There were a few steps. From TechCrunch, I moved to venture capital. I worked there for a few years, made some great investments. Some went public. I co-founded another fund in France called Yitzy, which now is one of the largest funds. I created a company in the mobile app space. It was the early days of the iPhone, which we eventually sold and to a public company. And then I stumbled into crypto and created ZenGo. So a lot of things have happened, and it was not a straight line. There was.
When you say you stumbled in, like, what was that enlightening moment? Like, what was it? Was it Bitcoin? Was it just was it a specific dApp or token?
Yeah. So I tell you what happened, and I'm kind of ashamed because usually I'm an early adopter of everything. I'm the first 1,000 users of any large thing you can think of, right? First 1,000 user of Twitter, first 1,000 user of whatever you want to name. And Bitcoin, I was aware of it, but I always dismissed it. I discounted it as something that looked like a toy, and even a toy for criminals. So completely ignored it for years. And I could have bought Bitcoin at $10, but I decided to ignore it. I think I even mined on my computer. That's like kind of how early I discovered it. And I ignore it. But when I came back and I moved to the US for my prior company, and when I came back from the US, I was kind of burnt out and tired. So I didn't do anything for a while. And I was kind of like trying to find what could excite me, whether this was for work or not, right? And I could not find anything. And I tried, and I tried to look into all sorts of concepts. And I started to work a lot and listen to podcasts. And one day I listened to a podcast about crypto with Nick Szabo, the father of smart contracts, which was talking about the fact that you can create applications that you cannot stop. And that concept, and it was not about Ethereum or like any coin or whatever, but just that concept. And that concept of unstoppable apps was for me a revolution, because my entire career, I worked or built or invested in companies where with a toggle, someone above you can basically kill you, whether this is a platform or a regulation or a website or a browser. And so basically any app could be stopped. And one of my companies actually nearly died because of that, right? When the Apple woke up and said, well, you can't do that anymore. And we had to shut off our application. And if we didn't pivot, we would have died on the spot. And so I was incredibly excited by the concept of apps that cannot be stopped. And so that gave me the desire to explore more about it, to discover Ethereum, to discover smart contracts. And as I discovered smart contracts, Ethereum, I acquired some coin, and then somehow I came back to Bitcoin later. But it's through another round of like thoughts and concept of like unstoppable money, right? Not so much about as money, but unstoppable money. And so this is how I came into it. And that was the entry point. And from there, when I go into something, I try to go really, really deep. I tried all the apps. I tried all the protocols. At the time, it was like not so many. It was still possible. CoinMarketCap was maybe, 20 or 30 lines. That's it. But quickly, I discovered also crypto wallets. And I realized it was something wrong and something very important to solve, and something also deeply broken. To this day, it's still true. And so this is how I came to ZenGo.
Okay, so like let me just set the tone a little bit for ZenGo and why I'm such a fanboy. And everybody knows that like the most difficult pain point coming into Web3 for the first time is like figuring out all the wallet stuff, right? You need to, what it used to be, go to MetaMask, and then you have to write down these 12 words. And sometimes you're in a rush and you forget to write them down, or sometimes you write them down and you lose the paper, or sometimes you put the paper somewhere so safe that you forgot where it is. And like everybody knows about this narrative with the 12 words, that often when you talk to people who haven't ever come into Web3, they're so deterred by these like horror stories of people who lost their seed phrase that they don't even want to start. So like opening a wallet is generally like the hardest hurdle to get through. And even when you do manage to open a wallet, it's still a pain in the ass to just like keep track of where these 12 words are. And just the whole wallet interface is very, very difficult to navigate. I know for myself, like even when I had been in crypto for many years and I was using multiple hardware wallets, Ledger and Trezor, and I had, I kind of take a similar approach that you do. Like if I want to learn an industry, I like to deep dive into it. So like I have wallets on every platform because I want to try and find the one that has the best user interface. And they all sucked until I came across ZenGo. I think I was at like an event here in Israel, and many events like have your roll-ups on the entrance, and I hate when people try and sell things to me. And so like I just kind of like ignored. And then at some point I was sitting next to somebody at like a crypto dinner event, and they were talking to like one of the top people in the Israeli tax authority, who's tasked with taxing crypto. And she's considered to be like an expert on crypto. She lectures at all the crypto events here in Israel. And like everybody always says, well, at least there's the one regulator who knows a thing or two about crypto. And she was telling us that she doesn't actually have any Bitcoin or any other crypto. So somebody was like, are you crazy? Like, let me give you some Bitcoin right now, just so that you could like feel it, and so that you could say that you're not a newbie. And then he opened up a ZenGo wallet for her, like in like 2 seconds, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. I want to get me one of these. And so the beauty of ZenGo is twofold, and Ouriel will tell it to you much better than I will, because like whenever people ask me about the technicalities, I'm like, I don't know, but it works. Number one, you don't need the seed phrase; it's biometric. And number two, it's, I think, the most secure wallet to date. All right, people think, oh well, if you don't have the seed phrase, so then you compromise in security. But it uses MPC technology, and it has not been hacked to date. I think, Ouriel, you'll correct me if I'm wrong. You guys have like 10 Bitcoins sitting in a ZenGo wallet, and you've asked multiple hackers to come and hack them, and you'll give them the bounty, and it hasn't been cracked yet. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
So for all those reasons, I absolutely love ZenGo, and I've told anybody, including my my son, who put his bar mitzvah money in Bitcoin, opened up a wallet in like 5 minutes for himself. I started this practice of giving bar mitzvah gifts to close friends of mine in Bitcoin, and I go through this process of opening up a ZenGo wallet with all of them. So like, I really, really think that this is just like a phenomenal technology. I can't understand why people are still using hardware wallets for cold storage. And that's me fanboying again. But why don't you tell us a little bit more about why your product is really, really unique?
Well, thank you for that. By the way, I also use a crypto now as bar mitzvah gifts a lot. And I ask always what they prefer, and it's funny, like what new generation, they prefer Bitcoin. That's very indicative of where we're going.
As opposed to cash, or as opposed to like Ethereum or another?
As opposed to cash. As opposed to cash, usually bar mitzvah you give cash, right? And the famous envelope with cash or check in it. And every time I ask, say, do you prefer cash or Bitcoin? I say, let me ask you my son, right? And like 100% of the time, they prefer Bitcoin. 100%. And all those who said yes today, they must be happy because the price has doubled or tripled or something like that.
Yeah.
So, they received, if they didn't sell, they received more money. Anyway, that's kind of a parenthesis. So first, just to set the context, why it's important that why crypto wallets are important. And then why is it important to make a good crypto wallet? Crypto wallets matter because the entire point of this industry is to give back control to the user, as opposed to delegating your wealth to a centralized entity like a bank, right? So when you put your money in a bank, you basically trust them with your money, and they basically dictate what you can do or can't do with it. And that relates into the way the fees showing, and even what you can receive or even what you can send. And everyone has been exposed to this kind of frustration with their bank, where they were trying to make a wire, receive a wire, doesn't work, or they restrict it, or don't you to give it. And in certain countries, if you are a certain religion, a certain type of customer, or certain immigrant, you feel those restrictions even more. And the entire point of crypto, beyond the beauty of the cryptography and the price action of Bitcoin, is to actually build unstoppable money, meaning money where you control what you own and what you can do with it. Now, in order to do that, you cannot build that by replicating a banking system. And today, most of the crypto is still sitting in bank-style systems like exchanges, right? Where you delegate to those exchanges your coin, and they decide for you what to do with it, right? And they allow you to send it, to receive it. Sometimes they seize it, etc., etc. And so the entire point of crypto is not to do that. The entire point of crypto is to reset the control back to the user. And to do that, you need a crypto wallet. A crypto wallet is a piece of software, sometimes of hardware, but with software, that basically puts on the blockchain, with the control of a password called a private key, or a key, the funds that are owned by you. Those can be Bitcoin, that can be Ethereum, those can be NFTs, that can be tokens. But you basically are the only one who can basically spend your funds the way you see fit. And this is important because this is the opposite path of what Finance 1.0 has been building for the past 100 years. So money back in the control of the users who own their money. That's kind of the entire point. Now, the problem with crypto wallets is precisely because you as the user to be in control is also has to be responsible for his own security. And so most crypto wallets, if not all crypto wallets, ask their users to store and back up and keep safe this famous security key, this private key that allows you to not just access your wallet, but also spend the funds that are into it and use the funds that are into it. The problem is that securing a password or a private key is actually very, very hard. It's something that most people don't know how to do. And this is why there is an entire cyber security industry, so people can store secrets. And in reality, what happened is that billions of dollars of crypto have been lost because people think they do the right thing, but they don't. Even with a hardware wallet, they have a private key. They're going to write it on some piece of paper, or even some software, or they're going to send them to themselves by email, or they're going to miswrite it, and they're going to lose it, or it's going to be hacked. And there are all sorts of risks that are either related to external hacks or basic human errors. And so all crypto wallets will be like that. And there are horror stories of like how people have lost funds, including most savvy people with technology and with crypto who have lost their money because they thought they knew and they didn't know. And it's extremely intimidating. And, it's like, a car without an insurance. You don't know you need one until you need one. And so the problem with crypto wallets is that you think you are protected until you are not, and you are the only one to blame if something goes wrong. All those crypto wallets, they tell you, hey, we won't be able to help you if something bad happens. And so when we saw that reality 7 years ago, we said, we can't accept that. That cannot be the future. You cannot say on one side, well, crypto will, unlock finance and give power back to people, but you have to know that there is a string attached, and the string attached is that you may lose all your wealth. To me, this reality is just unacceptable, and there is a limit to what you can accept. The price of crypto, right? And losing it is not an option. And the reason now to zoom out, how we build ZenGo, we didn't think about building just a crypto wallet that protect passwords or eliminate passwords or private keys. We wanted a solution that actually protects the user. And it's very different, right? So typical crypto wallets, they will secure a private key, and they will have all sorts of ways to do that by way of code or by way of hardware. But that's not enough, because you are protecting maybe a secret within that password, but you're not protecting that secret outside of it because you need to store it somewhere else. And even less, you're not protecting the user from the mistake that he can make outside, or the attacks, whether they are physical or digital, that you can suffer from. So when we built ZenGo, we thought, okay, how can we build something from the ground up that is completely different, that not just build a security for the funds that you have in the wallet, but also protects you from the mistakes that you can or will likely make at some point, or the physical attacks that you can, or the physical events of life that can attack, basically attack you and attack your funds and make them cause some loss. So we looked at all the ways we could build a wallet, and we arrived to the conclusion we could not build it with the typical recipe of building a public-private key wallet. It wouldn't work. No matter how you do it, if you ask someone to keep a private key, at some point a mistake or an attack is going to happen, even if you're very sophisticated. So we look at different type of cryptography, and we bet very early on. Now it's a keyword and a buzzword in the industry, but we were the first company in the world to build on multi-party computation, which basically distributes the concept of private key and splits it into different parts. It's not exactly splitting it, but I'm trying to simplify for the purpose of that conversation. And therefore, there is no single point of failure anymore. If you lose one secret, the wallet is still not compromised. If an attacker steals one secret, the wallet is still not compromised. And on top of that, we also invented a new way to authenticate to a wallet, right? Not just the cryptography with multi-party computation, but how you authenticate. And we created the first passwordless solution to log in and recover a wallet. That means that instead of having a typical login or a typical code or an SMS or some kind of rotating security factor, we basically created a pathway. At no point you have to write down anything. You don't have to memorize anything. And we call it 3FA, three-factor authentication, where in 3 steps, where you write an email, you receive a magic link, you grant an access to a cloud that you control, and finally, you do a secure private biometric scan on your phone, you basically have an account. You have an account which you can recover also with the same 3 steps. So 2 major innovations at the cryptographic level with no single point of failure at the cryptographic level, and a new way to authenticate to the wallet. But that's just the beginning of the security of ZenGo, because now that we have this amazing architecture, we can also create security services that protect you. And that's not enough at the point of creation, but also as you use the wallet. And that's very important. When you make transactions, when you connect to applications, when you have large sums and you want to protect them from physical attacks or even from death. And we created all those services that are now packaged into one single bundled application called ZenGo. And in there, your funds are protected nearly every single case of life where your funds can be at risk. Whether this is how you recover your wallet, are you going to send transactions, connect to an application, delegate your funds in inheritance planning, protect your funds in case of physical attacks when you're going somewhere that can be risky like an event, and all sorts of solutions of that nature. And indeed, ZenGo is to date the most secure solution on the market. We have well over 1 million users. Said like not enough people know it, but a few people know it. Well over 1 million users. And to this day, we'd never single account takeover, not one. So the system was never hacked, and not a single user has ever had the case of having their account taken over. Typically, taken over, it means someone gets your 24 words phrase, and they basically take your account and your money is gone. And this has never happened with ZenGo because it's like very difficult to do, as you heard. So that's ZenGo. Okay, it's a wallet that protects your funds, that protects you, that has 2 major innovations at the cryptographic level, at the authentication level, and that has been an entire range of security services to protect your funds and you in all the situations of life.
You forgot like a few extra points I'm going to add on if you don't mind.
Please
another
do.
major innovation. Another major innovation. And I'm sorry. This is just really one of my favorite products in crypto. Is that you guys actually? One of the notorious things about crypto, and there's a positive side to this and a negative, is that like you're completely on your own. Like people, we love the idea that there's no banks and central governments and other people that are hampering the way between me sending money from me to you. At the same time, there's nobody that's guaranteeing you're having your back either. So like the first time that you screw up a transaction on MetaMask and you send something from an Ethereum wallet to a Solana wallet and it disappears forever, to a smart contract that you can never get the funds out of, and you're like, oh, who do I call now? The answer is nobody, because like it's you versus the smart contract. There's no intermediary here that you could call up and yell at. But with ZenGo, you guys have 24/7 customer service. Like I had a little issue with like a staking contract that I was withdrawing from, and it was like 11:30 at night, and I just clicked on the customer service button, and somebody wrote back to me within like minutes. Okay, this is a technical bug. We're working on it, but you could rest assured your funds are safe. And like that doesn't exist anywhere else in the cryptoverse, where like there's a customer service person who actually is available 24/7 to tell you like, don't worry, man, like you didn't screw up, everything's fine. So I think that's like incredibly innovative, as stupid as that sounds. And when you and I spent Shabbat together in Singapore a few months ago, you were telling me about this new feature that you hadn't rolled out yet. called the Vault, which I think now already exists. And I was like trying to figure out the use case for it. And basically, what it is like if you were saying how if you were traveling, let's say to Singapore for a token, and you didn't want to find yourself in a situation where like mass bandits came into your room at night and tied you up and said, "Give me your seed phrase," or open up your ZenGo wallet with your biometric data, so you could lock your funds in a vault where it wouldn't be visible and it wouldn't even be accessible even by you for a certain time period, let's say until you get back from the conference. And I thought that was like a bit of a stretch, but a cool feature. And then literally at DevCon in Bangkok a few weeks ago, there was a dude who somebody broke into his hotel room during the conference, tied him up, and forced them to give him the seed phrase. So like if he had ZenGo Vault, he would have been totally fine in that situation. So like it's these are just like cool features that you guys are constantly thinking of and adding. And like I said, big fan, and not getting paid anything. So
no, that's true. So the just come back on the customer support. It sounds trivial, but indeed, it's one thing that has been discounted from crypto wallet as a whole is like there's so much focus on the technicality and security, people forget about the user experience. And so what we didn't say until now is that what makes ZenGo stand out is like it's not just this boost in security and protection that you have. It's also this massive boost in simplicity and user experience. We have a mobile app, but also now a desktop through browser experience. And it's a real delight to use it compared to any other wallet. I mean, if you've been using MetaMask or hardware wallet, you will feel the pain at every single point. And ZenGo feels like butter. They just, real delight to use, and it goes indeed up to the customer support where it is a policy that we answer extremely fast. We, by the way, do it in every single language with human support. So if you were speaking, I don't know, Italian or German or I don't know, Spanish, we would answer in your language. And it's a human being answering you. It's not like a robot AI. Maybe one day it will be, but to this day, it's are real humans. And they answer fast and usually comes with either a reassuring message or a solution. And so this is very important. And, it's always kind of, how can I say, forgotten, the basic elements of a good service is good user experience. And so that starts with support and also, of course, the entire design of the app and the company's policies around it. So that's kind of very important to say. ZenGo stands out because of the security and the user experience. And by the way, we are one of the highest rated products in the entire industry, not just as a crypto wallet, but if you look at G2 scores in terms of user satisfaction, I think we are number 1 or number 2 or something like that, depends on the months. About the Vault, indeed, this is a kind of feature that we learned was important as we matured as a product and we grew with more users that, have more and more funds. We secure hundreds of millions of dollars of crypto with ZenGo, and some have a lot of money on it. And so when you have first users who only have, tens of dollars, hundreds of dollars, that doesn't matter. When you start to have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, you start to ask other questions. One of which is, indeed, if I go to that place and I'm getting attacked, and that happen with crypto conferences, by the way, as you noted, it happened also in ECC in Brussels. What happens right now? There is an official event. People know that there will be people with crypto there. They are officially target. What do you do? Right? So one option is to actually not bring your wallet, but you cannot bring your wallet, but people still know that you have a seed phrase and they can force you to give it to them. So what do you do in that case? Are you going to say, well, no, I don't care about my life here. You won't have my seed phrase. Most people will give that secret. But the point is, there is nothing to give away if you cannot actually give your funds, if you cannot send them. So we created a solution where your funds are actually locked. They are locked for a period of time. You decide how much. It can be a day, it can be a week, it can be a month. We soon adding 6 months and 12 months. And during that period, the funds can't move. Even you can't press the button. There's no button to send the funds. You have to wait the lock period to finish. So if someone attacks you, your funds are unexposed to these attacks, right? And so then there is a dilemma for the attacker, right? And even better, like if he knows that you have ZenGo, he knows that there's a very high chance that he won't get anything out of it, even if you didn't get into the settings of your account, because we have this type of protection. So this is a real innovation. I think we're the first one to bring it to the market. Right now, it only works with Bitcoin. We're going to launch it also for Ethereum and NFTs, which is often a problem also because of the remote attacks and the phishing and the malicious applications. And it works great. So anyway,
one
I'm
more
not sure
plug.
why we went down that road, but it's a very important highlight.
One more plug before we move on. Another thing that people always tell me, like crypto haters or people who are hesitant about coming into the space, they're like, oh, Bitcoin, like I can't leave it for my kids. Like, what if I die? Nobody's going to know about it. Another cool feature in the ZenGo wallet is that you could actually define like a certain period where if your wallet is untouched, let's say after like 18 months or whatever, then like by default, it gives access to a third party, like your wife or your lawyer or your kids or whatever it is.
It's a legacy plan. You can set up a legacy plan where you designate a trusted person. And if your your wallet is untouched for a long period of time with multiple, reminders and stuff like that, the wallet is transferred integrally to the person of trust. And it's like done in a very simple setup. You don't need to have the other person to be technical.
Everything about ZenGo is very simple. Like they're like really like if my son, and now just recently this week my dad aped into Bitcoin, and now he also has a ZenGo wallet. If both my 13-year-old son and my 67-year-old father could do it and he was not very technical, in just a few clicks, like anybody can. So okay, I think we like sucked ZenGo raw. If I didn't give the impression enough that I think it's a freaking awesome product, so then I rest my case. But in addition to working on all these really cool features and running this amazing company, you also seem to be active 24/7, at least since October 7th. The October 7th atrocities here in Israel, in advocating for Israel on X, like 200 tweets a minute. There's not like one Israel hater that doesn't get a response from you. You're constantly on top of whatever is going on in the media. How the hell do you do it? And not so much why, but kudos to you that you didn't like cower in the corner in fear of like harming your business or taking a hit personally, and that you continue to stand up and do this. Tell me a little bit about like the thought processes and how that evolved and how you continue to do it so amazingly.
Yes, of course. Well, first, like I said before, I always cared about Israel. I was always vocal about supporting Israel. Even before I moved here, and there was no internet, or there was very little internet at the time, but I was always, I felt always very strongly connected, although at first I was not living here, but even after I was living here, even more, of course, right? Because I was setting foot here. I knew people who were directly affected by the wars, the terrorist attacks, and I always cared about how, because of the story of the Jewish people, how can we build a better way to defend ourselves, which is not relying just on a military system, right? And weapons and going to war. And if you look at the history of the Jewish people, the key reason why we've suffered is not because of military inferiority. Okay, that was the second step, right? The first step is an ideological war, genocidal ideological war, extermination of the idea of the possibility of a Jewish people. And so to me, there was always the necessity that we can only win this war if we win it with better ideas, with better expressions, with better communication, and not just militarily. Of course, it helps, right? It helps to defend ourselves, but the core of the issue is not there. And so I was always attracted by the challenge of doing that. And I was always frustrated also by the blatant inferiority of Israel into that particular field. I think, Israel is a fantastic country, amazing innovation, tech country, cyber nation, fantastic military. This war will be a spectacular win from a military standpoint, but it's an absolute disaster from a communication standpoint and the image of Israel, which is, it's not because it's like, it's not, it's because it's like also the opposite of the truth. How do we manage to screw it so much? And I was so frustrated by that always. Now with the war, to me, it was very obvious day one, from October 7, minute one, that we would win this war militarily, but that we would probably very quickly lose this war from an image point of view, because we don't have the proper army to do it, the proper resources to do it. Now, it's not up to me to decide how this should be done. I'm not running a political party. I'm not involved in politics. I hate politics. But I always felt that anyone could contribute and could help from his own point of view. And so the reason why I'm so involved is because I think it really matters that every single Jewish people, or people who care about Jewish people, try to contribute in their own way, hoping one day maybe there will be a better system, but do it today. So for me, that was very important. The second reason is when I came to Israel, I came too old. It was too old for doing the military. I could not get into the IDF. Was way too old. And I always felt frustrated that I was isolated from that system, not because I could not participate in a war, but because I could not help my country. And there are many things you can do in the IDF. I could not know what it means to be in the IDF. I could not know other people who were in the IDF. Could not understand exactly all the mechanics that basically build a society here. And so to me, it was a way to compensate also with that and becoming very active. Now, indeed, from October 7, I became extremely active. I think I must be one of the most active Twitter user with Elon Musk. I think I beat him in terms of pace, but of course, he's at all other level. So I don't want to compare, but I'm extremely active. And to me, I don't make a calculation about what I should say, what I shouldn't say, what could be the impact or not. I just do what I feel is right for me, right? What makes me feel good, what makes me feel active and good about what I say for my country. And I just do. And I do very little calculation. Now, another secret, I've been extremely active on social media for 15 years. I know extremely well how Twitter works. Extremely well at every single level, not just the features, but how the algorithm works, how you can have conversations, how you can get the attention of nearly anyone. I managed to get Elon Musk to answer me twice, and I know how to play the game. And I thought that it could be interesting to use that skill during the war with one hope, is that if another person in the world, anyone, felt some inspiration from what I was doing, it was a win, because then my effort would not be vain. So what do I do? Of course, I'm not just there to troll and to get into the ways of people who spread lies.
But you are a great troll.
I am a great troll. I own that concept, right? Completely. But I do it in a way that triggers conversation, that make you think, and many times that also destroy, completely eradicate some lies. And occasionally, I will build up very large stories that even make news, right? That will land on TV or newspaper, because I will deep dive into a topic and I will do the job that a journalist should do and that they don't. And so, of course, I don't have the time to do this all the time, but I'm extremely active. And so how do I do it? How do I manage with the time? It's simple. I have two lives. I have two lives, and
simple.
I'm good at multitasking. So like you couldn't see now my setup, but I have literally 4 screens in front of me, and I can do 4 things in parallel. And this is how I've always worked. Like if there was no war, I would do 4 things anyway. And so I'm capable of, while I'm tweeting about an insane conversation with 10 trolls hitting on me, capable of working on a business plan, talking to my team, and even designing a mock-up for a next feature. Like this is how I'm built. And so people don't understand that. They think like, how can you do all these kind of things? You never sleep. I sleep extremely well. I eat well. I have a life. I also do things beyond that. I do sport, I play music, I have kids, stuff like that. But I'm capable of multitasking. So that allows me to be so active. And you couple that with the fact that I know extremely well social media. You couple that with the fact that now I have some culture about what happens during the war. I'm probably over-informed, but I know how to filter what matters and what doesn't. So I ingest a lot of information very quickly, and I can use that to create conversations, sometimes by trolling, sometimes just by stating. I have created insanely viral threads or posts that were not just like part of another person conversation or trolling someone else. I've been blocked by every single major Jew hater that you can think of on the planet, from Dan Bilzerian to you name it, like all of them. There's a very few that have not blocked me yet, but to me, I consider that as a badge of honor and a victory, because it means that I've managed to trigger them to the point that they were disturbed. They could not handle the conversation anymore. And very quickly, you realize that most of those people, they basically have very little facts. And there is only thing that is true with them is that they basically hate Jews. And now the reason it matters to me is not what I do matters. I think the voice of Jews matters during this war. The reason it matters is because this war is a war on words. It's a war on words. It's a war on ideas. You can see it with the way they have completely perverted the nature of the word genocide, which is like, it could be further from the truth. It's ridiculous. But not just this word, even words like apartheid, ethnic cleansing, starvation, like all those words have completely lost this meaning. And the reason is because you have a gazillion number of people who repeat it all day long without any facts, but people start to believe it because it's repeated so much at every level of the society, from typical users to politicians. And so to me, there is a duty from anyone who is a victim of this attack, because it is an attack, to defend itself. And the way you defend against an attack on words is by using better words, by using better ideas, by using better techniques to destroy those weapons of words. And so I think those are very important, because if we don't win that war, we will lose what matters most, is the legitimacy of our existence. And then that means that the possibility of a second Holocaust can be accepted. And that is obviously unacceptable. Like, if you accept the fact that Israel is so evil and that Jewish are so evil, then it's natural to think that you should get rid of them, right? That's the natural conclusion. And this scenario, we know it. We've seen it over and over again for thousands of years. But now, because of the power of social media, because of the power of the internet, this weapon is even stronger, is even more dangerous, even toxic, is even more nuclear. And so we have this duty, to me, that's my opinion, to participate in the conversation to the level that we can. All right. Not everyone should be extremely active. And my hope eventually is that Israel will finally understand that there is to be an army, a real army with resources to defend its country from that standpoint, which is not the case, in my opinion, today. I think we're not there yet. So that's a long answer to your question, but I think it gives the context.
Perfect answer. On your last point, that I think that you're spot on, that there needs to be like an army of ex-trolls that are fighting the Israel haters online. What do you think? How do you think that what do you think needs to happen for that to be able to materialize? And are you doing anything to try and bring that closer?
So I initiated a few conversations with some people, but unfortunately, I'm limited with time, and hopefully, I cannot tell you everything what's going on with work. But maybe next year I will have more time to think about that. Now I'm pretty busy with many things, but I'm busy at all anyway. But I think it should start with the official acknowledgement that we're losing this war. Like, until we actually say it officially, don't hide it. Okay,
the media war.
That we are. I'm sorry.
The media war. We're losing the media war.
The media war. We're using the media war. We're using the image war. We're using the communication war. Not just because of the disproportion of the message. We're just a tiny people against hundreds of millions, if not billions, but also because of the nature of the message. The nature of the message. So first, we have to acknowledge we spectacularly lose this war. And we just not lose it because we can't win it, is because we are faced with an existential threat that is articulated by way of words. So we need to acknowledge that. The second thing is we need to have a political decision that is strategic to win it. It has to be strategic. The same way we define, very clear goals. We need to bring back the hostages. We need to kind of eradicate, whatever Hamas, Hezbollah, and all the terrorist threats. State those military goals. We need to be capable of stating the same with the war on words. And it is essential that we're capable to do that. The third, I think Israel needs, I don't know if it's an army, but needs an organization of elite thinkers on the matters. Elite thinkers on the matter. And it's not like, there's no lack of amazing brains on the matter. I can list 100 names like very quickly about, best brains, not just for this topic at all, that can contribute. And I think we should have the equivalent of the elite unit that we have in the military service, A200, 81, Mamram, whatever, but for digital war, for information war. And so we need to constitute those units. We need to train them themselves. They will train others. Then we have to have a policy that is distributed and is kind of similar to crypto, where we empower individuals or groups all around the world to help in that mission, because there is so much that we can do from here. That war is global. It's not like here, military war, which is basically here, right? It's a global war that is hurting every single Jew around the world. We see it, synagogues in Canada, in Australia, in France, in Germany, in the UK. Like, Jews are exposed everywhere. And so you need to have a global footprint to be able to fight that. And then that needs to come with resources. I did a back of the envelope calculation of what winning a war like that would cost, right? And I cannot get into the details of that, but we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars per year. It's not cheap to win. It's not because you need to pay people. It's because you need to have the tools. You need to have the intelligence. You need to have the systems. You need to have the coordination. You need to have the efficiency of a few millions against a few billions, right? So you need to have.
But I imagine that if you invested that money and you started to have some wins on the war of words, it would impact you, economically on the war of weapons as well. In other words, you'd have more countries on your side, more vocal advocates on behalf of Israel, which would translate to less antagonism and less legal costs in the ICC and in the ICJ. Like there would be a definite beneficial outcome from winning the war of words, or at least starting to win it.
Of course, I don't think the benefit would be immediate. I think, this war is a generational war. It will take tens of years. Let's state straight. Right now, the image of Israel is in the sink, right? It's completely in the trash. It will take years and years and years until we get out of it, because there's been generations of people that have been brainwashed on TikTok, on social media, with the same message, and you will not convince them otherwise, no matter what you say. So how do you fix that? You can't. It will take time. Will fix it. So no matter what you do now, it will take time to fix it. Now, what I'm saying is that this war is not over. The war may be over soon. Maybe if we have like a ceasefire with Hamas, whatever. But that war, that existential war on ideas, on words, on the Jewish people, is far from over. It will come back to us. It will boomerang back at us. And if we don't build today the system to fight it and to win it, we will lose it over and over and over and over again. And so I think this current war is lost. There's nothing we can do about it, like right now. But we can do something about the next one. And I don't know how it will come back at us. It might be a war with, I don't know, another country or Iran, or God knows. Jew haters don't like imagination to come back at us, right? And attack us. It will come back. It's a fact. And the anti-Semitism will always be here. So how do we fight it? We fight it with better tools, with better trained people, with better resources, with a global footprint. And I think we can win it, right? Because I see the brilliance of certain groups, of the certain individuals, of how they address it. It's just like uncoordinated and done on the side. And I can only imagine what it would be if that was propelled and amplified, powered with the proper resources. Like, for example, I do what I do. No one asks me. Like, I work for no one. I don't get paid. I do it because I care, right? And there are thousands, if not tens of thousands of people like me. But I actually believe that there are hundreds of thousands of people who would want to do the same. They just can't afford to do it because it's time consuming, or because they are, they don't know how they are going to have consequences with their work if they do that. And so they just don't step in. But imagine if you had a digital army or organization of hundreds of thousands that were intellectually equipped with the right tool to have the conversations. I'm not talking about just trolling or whatever. To have the conversations, to be able to talk to journalists, to kind of go on a Piers Morgan show and actually make Piers Morgan think, right? And have the proper way to have a conversation within, not on his show, on Twitter, where he has millions and the show is only 1 hour a week. On Twitter is 24/7. Imagine if we had kind of this kind of footprint and said, Piers Morgan, you multiply that by, 200 to 2,000. I think that would have a radical consequence on how we Israelis perceived and how the messages are indeed understood. And as you said, it would have a beneficial consequence on the cost of this war, because all these bogus reports that we have to fight all the time, amnesty reports on genocide and God knows what else, they would be ridiculed within a minute. Like there would not be any voice that would dare to say those things, because they know that in front there are an army of fact checkers, an army of thinkers, an army of conversational people that will ridicule them by facts, by rational, at scale. And so I think we're not there, of course, but my hope is that one day this happens.
Tell me, have you paid a price personally or through ZenGo for the holy crusade you've taken on yourself?
So the company, no.
You're not getting random hate messages on the company profile?
No, I mean, sometimes we're getting like a weirdo on customer support, and we had once, there was a case where there was an orchestrated campaign of negative reviews for ZenGo, but it was easy to spot that it was fraud. And so we managed to get it neutralized, but nothing major. The opposite, actually, we actually grew enormously during the period of the war. I don't know if it's because of what I say. I don't think it's true, but let's say we didn't get an impact of that.
I think it's because of all my shills.
What?
I said, I think it's because of all my shills.
Because of all your shells, yeah, maybe. And maybe, some try to hack us, and we will never know. I mean, people try to hack us all the time. And, I don't know if they know we are in Israel or not. Crypto has tried to get hacked all the time. It's a fact of the industry. But anyway, the bottom line is no. However, at a personal level, there's been pretty insane. And I actually became pretty good at protecting myself digitally. So I live in Israel, so my exposure physically here is obviously limited. But digitally, I've basically locked everything that could be a point of entrance or attack. From a privacy standpoint, from security standpoint. For example, I don't accept random invitations on LinkedIn. Just shut them off. On Twitter, no possibility of direct messaging me unless I follow you. All kind of things that way. As you can imagine, me being in cyber 24/7, I've locked myself in every single possible way. It's still possible probably to hack me, but really, really hard compared to the average guy. And I know some people have tried to hurt me. Like, I know Like I've seen it, right? I've seen what they tried to do.
Wow.
Some were minor, some were pretty scary. And I don't know if I should say that, but I have a pretty thick skin. Like, to get me down, you need to be a pretty massive Terminator. Like, I'm equipped for this. Like, it's not that I seek it, but I can handle. I'm a big boy. I can handle. I can handle. Yeah, I can handle a lot of stuff. Now I'm a human too, right? And there are some days that it's really hard, like really, really hard. And sometimes I need to kind of also back off and, reduce the pace and stuff like that. But I would say that if I had to say it differently, do I regret, things that I said because of certain things, or should I do it differently? Absolutely not. Like, everything that I did, fully back it up. I would do it again and again, every single word of it. I'm proud of, the way I'm handling the matter. And the thing that, for me, the test of truth is not what I think of myself. Like, I feel good with what I do. It's important, of course, right? If I felt like shit, I would probably stop or feel depressed. The moment of truth is when I meet people that I don't know, right? Go to events, or even sometimes receive random message digitally, emails that tell me, wow, your messages, they made my day better. I feel better about being a Jew. It gives me the strength to keep on believing that we will win. It even gave me some ideas of what I could do to help. And when I hear those things, to me, this is worth every single sacrifice in time, in pain that I've made. Like, to me, it's as if I was, it's probably the best outcome that I could imagine. So suffering, probably yes, but worth it, absolutely yes.
Wow. Well, thank you for your service on behalf of all of us.
I don't even consider it a service. It's like I said, it's a natural thing to do. To me, it's like it feels important and natural.
You're doing great work. Keep it up. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really, really appreciate it. If there's any last words of Hopium or future ZenGo feature rollouts that you want to drop here on the podcast, this is the time to do that. If not, tell users how they could follow you, if it's just on X, or if there are other places, if you have a blog or something, where the best place for people to find out what's going on with Ouriel and with ZenGo.
So first, obviously, and thank you for your amazing support. And I know you're a genuine fan, and really appreciate that. And I don't take those kind of words for granted. We work really hard for it. But indeed, if you have any interest in crypto, or plan to have some interest in crypto, try a few products, make yourself your ID, but try ZenGo. It will feel like playing the violin after you remove, box gloves. It will feel natural. It will feel like butter. You will feel good about it. Hopefully you will love it. So try the product. We have a mobile application, and we have now also a desktop version, and that makes it convenient if you want a larger screen and just like a better experience. So if you want to follow anything about ZenGo, ZenGo.com. On X, it's x.com/ZenGo. And if you want to follow what I do, I'm on X also. If you do Ouriel, Ouriel Ohayon, Ohayon, you'll find me. My last words would be words of hopes. Okay, like, obviously we had a pretty terrible year. Even if we win this war, and I think we will win it, like, pretty spectacularly, even militarily speaking, it was a very, very, very rough year, both for Israel but also for crypto. Like, I've probably one of the hardest year of my entire life. Like, it really been in a washing machine without soap, 24/7. And now we start to see the light, both in crypto, with like this massive rally coming up, and the hopes of the new Trump administration, which is very pro crypto and crypto friendly, as opposed to the prior administration. But also we start to see the beginning of the end of this war, with radical threats being eliminated and a path toward a ceasefire. I wouldn't say a path to peace, because I think we're pretty far from peace. But I think the best days are in front of us. I think the reality for Israel, geostrategically speaking, has morphed enormously. Like, if you look where Israel was a year ago, we were at the end of the tunnel, like, no pun intended. And I want to be respectful of the hostages, but it was in a very dark place. And if you look at where we are today, this is amazing. Like, it's one of the most amazing comeback of the history. Like, basically Israel was literally F word, right? And now we are stronger. We're more united than ever. We still have to bring all our hostage back, but I think we have a path to build a better future with better neighbors and with better acceptance. And if we can win the war on words, the war on image, I think we'll be one of the most amazing nations on the planet, and one that most will want to collaborate with. So I am very positive, like, moving forward. I think we're coming back from very far, both in crypto, so for Israel. And I want to conclude this great conversation, with words of hope.
Thank you, Ouriel, and wishing us both a great 2025.
We do.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Code. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, share with your friends, and to tune in again next week for more fun and insightful conversation.